Hail cheaters, welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know how ominous this episode is going to be, Josh. I mean, for many reasons. We're late. We're never late. Always Cheating is never late recording.
Always Cheating podcast comes out on Monday.
There's also this thunderstorm that's rolling through New York City right now. And behind me in the window, I'm constantly seeing these flashes of lightning. So maybe that's just strokes of genius that we're about to have over the next hour. Or I don't know, something bad's really going to befall me during this recording. So stick around.
Outside of a hurricane, it's like the most rain I can ever remember New York having in a single day. This is wild. Yeah. So, thank you to everyone who reached out and asked if for proof of life. We did mention that we were going to be a little late on last week's pod, but I think we buried it a little far into the pod. And Brendan, you and I went to New Orleans with some of our friends. These basically our little pandemic crew. I know some people. Made
our
their
male
own little
therapy group.
Our pod buddies. We all went down for a few days and we got back on Monday, and it was just Monday. It was almost we wanted to record on Monday. It was just too much travel that day. And then at that point you're like, well, why record on Tuesday when you have the double game weeks on Wednesday and Thursday? And then because Wednesday it makes sense because at that point you'd have the Man City match and it would sort of wipe out all other conversations. And I think. And so we'll just use that to say, we'll try to keep this pod short this week. We'll be back on Sunday with a normal pod in just a couple days time. So this is just treat this like a 2-pod week. You can pretend that you're a Patreon supporter for 1 week.
Yeah.
And if you want to, toss a shekel in the Patreon bucket, go ahead and do that, Brandon.
We won't say no.
We won't say no. But I'll use that to lead into today's match, which was unusual, extremely unusual. I don't think I've ever seen a match quite like it. A defensive struggle for 44 minutes, and then Spurs score 2 goals, kind of from nothing. Mm-hmm. And then Pep makes no changes at halftime. And you're like, okay, it's like real galaxy brain Pep here. And then they come out and destroy Spurs with 4 goals in the second half with an effectively unchanged team from the first half. It's like you don't see tonal shifts that often. Right? Only in some of the maybe the records of the 1960s. The White Album. Are you this all over the place in terms of what you're getting in 2 hours? It's really it was a really wild match. And I don't know. Did you watch it or catch some of it at least?
I did watch the whole match, and I think maybe the closest we could say from recent matches would be Spurs themselves doing what City did to them to Crystal Palace a couple of weeks ago.
They did
but
Palace.
to this degree, and it was like that Spurs Palace match, but pour on top of that some real mistakes that were made by City at the very end of that half. I thought the post-match interview that Jack Grealish and Riyad Mahrez gave was they said the whoever was interviewing them was like, man, like what happened to them in that first half? And both of them were like, we don't think we played that bad. We actually had the better of the chances. It was just 2 gimmies that we gave Spurs. Pep was the one who really went down that. Those were gifts that we gave to Antonio Conte.
That second goal is all Kane. I don't think that's a gift. He was incredible for him to stay with that ball.
I don't disagree with you. I thought Rodri was an interesting character in both of those goals. Now, the first goal, it's Ederson being slack with his pass to Rodri, and Rodri just can't deal with it. You can't fully blame him for that. But then Rodri cannot ride this challenge from Kane on the second goal. I don't know. I'm not sold on this Rodri guy. Somebody needs to get at me and tell me what I'm missing, because
I think he did get an assist today.
Fantasy returns are fantasy returns. Sure, so fantasy returns don't win Champions League.
You don't like Rodri? I think Rodri's excellent. Usually, he did not have a great. Excuse me, I dropped my pen there. He did not. That's how shocked I was by what you just. You're anti-Rodri. By the way, did you think that it was a little? shady that we had a couple shady assists this weekend.
Yeah.
The Saka one, both of them helped me, but I have to say I was surprised by both of them. I was pretty sure that Ederson was going to get the assist for that fourth goal.
I had Ederson earlier this season when he assisted Haaland. I think it was against Brighton, where Haaland just steamrolled whatever defender was between him and the goal, and they credited Ederson with the assist like 60 minutes later.
Yeah.
So I thought the same logic would apply. And yes, what is different about the Kane assist to the Saka non-assist in the North London derby? It's so bizarre. All I can say is I'm in with the crowd of people who are like, there is some vast conspiracy that means Harry Kane gets whatever he wants. He's like, he's going to come out with some memoir called Spare, some crap like
I just think in general lean towards giving the assist. Right, because this is all for fantasy anyway. This is like Opta is not. I know they use Opta for this stuff, and there's not a lot. Maybe that I suppose it just comes down to Opta. Really, the Premier League should just be like, listen, we don't make these decisions and leave it at that. But it was it was just.
But that's not just to interrupt real quick. Opta. FPL credits more assists than Opta does. Opta will not give you an assist for a deflected shot that results in a goal, etc. So FPL does, by their own rules that are on their rules page, stretch the scope of Opta. So
that's true. I guess I was thinking if Opta had given Ederson the assist, they would have given it. It's almost like works that you're right. It works. They're not going to take away one if it's been awarded by Opta, but they will give one. I just felt like I watching that he boots it. It feels like a pass to Mahrez, really, and
100%.
Yeah. And the Saka one was just surprising to me because I don't think that was enough of a significant touch. Anyway, well, this is like real in the weeds stuff here. I think. Maybe the big story from game week 20. Obviously, we had this double game week, which is kind of a bust of a double. Let's be honest.
We avoided the triple captaincy chip, so we kind of got away with murder there.
I was joking. I was going to make a T-shirt that said "I survived not triple captain Erling Haaland in game week 20."
It got a little scary there in early in the second half.
Are you kidding me? When he scored that first goal, I was convinced he had another one in him. I was absolutely convinced.
So I think it's really going to be difficult to say whether that triple captaincy was a huge failure. Good
I think
enough.
You can go ahead. Okay, here's what I'll say. I'll say two things here. I'll cut you off because I must speak.
Please.
And if I speak, I will be in trouble. I felt like historically. 8 points is almost a good return, given how many of us have horror stories about
Leroy Sané, Sadio Mane. The list goes on.
There are examples, but I think this season when you have this remarkably automatic option and Haaland and perhaps we can throw Rashford in there as well. I'm still strongly leaning towards captain Haaland at some point. For him to come away with 8 points, I feel like. It's kind of it's a little bit of a middle thing. It's like it's not so bad that we're going to have like 0 listeners to this week's pod, which is sometimes when there's a really bad captain return, we see like a 20% drop in listeners. It's not that catastrophic, but I think certainly even Haaland triple captainers would say that their expectations were at least double-digit returns, and I think getting 8 has got to be considered a disappointment from that perspective.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I just we don't know. There will toward the end of the season be a popular follow-up double game week or single game week where the rest of us play the triple captain. It's sort of like I want to see how that goes before I start talking about how it went with.
You're worried about the historical record.
Yeah, maybe 8 points will feel like a gift at that point. But it's true for a double that felt like a bust. There were so many ways out in game week 20. There were so many other paths to victory, whether it was Mahrez, whether it was Bruno Fernandes, whether it was those cheeky people who smartly captained Marcus Rashford. I mean, Kepa for us in goal with a 10-pointer. Like what was bad going into game week 20 is good again. And it feels like springtime at Always Cheating.
Yeah, I think you're right. Certainly, it was a fairly high scoring week when it all got added together. And I think I ended up. Let me actually pull up my final score for the game week here. I ended up on 72 points. Didn't take a hit this week. Kind of wish I would have, but it's that classic thing where you see only in hindsight, you are convinced you would have made the transfer that would have made you more points. But
was there one you were considering?
Briefly considering the Sven Botman move. My bigger frustration this week was I didn't get my starters and bench right. I left 8 points from White on the bench and 12 from Leon Bailey. Now the Bailey one, I just felt like he hadn't quite done enough recently to be starter material, and I felt like West Ham we're going to fire our coach mode. So I was like, well, let me just start Bruyne. He's been really solid, and I got 6 points from him. So you've
got to give yourself credit for that.
Exactly. So it worked out okay. The White one, I probably should have started White over Mitro, and that would have, or maybe even Bailey over Mitro. But again, you can only play this hindsight game so much because Mitro won a pen. This is
put in the position to succeed.
Yeah, this happened twice now where I've got these 0 pointers from Mitro in the last couple of weeks, and it's because of these late missed pens, and it's the double hit. It was crazy. I mean, it was I've seen it before, but it was frustrating to have it happen. But in the end, 72, totally fine game week. I started the game week at 13,700 or something like that. And then right now I'm at, or I was at 11,700. Now I'm at 13,588. So 1,700 spots, doesn't matter at all. Almost feels like a green arrow, right? Especially because I
don't care.
Well, I didn't triple captain Holland. A lot of people did. It was like, I felt like I dodged a bullet a little bit there. So I'm feeling really good about how the game week went. And yours was excellent.
At a blinder, mate. I finished on 92, but I did take a points hit, so that's a net 88. Still by far my best game week rank of the season at 148K, and it gets me dangerously close to the top 100K OR. I started the game week at 213K. I'm now at 108, so that's
halved it.
Yeah, more than halved it. So I'm thrilled. It's my best. Every time I come on this podcast and say it's my best rank since such and such, I get knocked back the following game week. So this is my goal going into the weekend is to keep it going.
No more Chumbawambas. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all straight as an arrow here. The concern looking ahead to game week 21 is it's grim as far as fantasy like fixtures look. There are lots of competitive fixtures. Now that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but the big spotlight on my team was Bruno Fernandes. Now the way Mahrez owners were feeling today, Thursday afternoon, evening, is how I was feeling when Bruno scored yesterday against Crystal Palace, and it was a legitimate goal. A little better than the goal he scored with Rashford offside, as Christian Eriksen just walked right into the penalty area, and then Bruno had somehow even more space, and just the way Bruno lashed that ball, and it went into the goal and bounced right out. Tight nets there at Selhurst Park.
Should have had an assist late in that too. Your boy Casemiro, Brandon. He was right there, and he's kind of more my boy than your boy.
Yeah, I will stand for lots of your boy shouts, but Casemiro is 100% not my boy.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I'll stand for Casemiro. I think Casemiro is a good player, and that's the hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah, I mean, my memory of Casemiro is always just him. Putting in reducer challenges for Real Madrid in the Champions League, not being a real La Liga watcher, but him at Manchester United, he's just like, it's no joke. He's like by far and away the best signing that they've made. He's been incredible for them, and now he's out with a yellow card suspension for the Arsenal fixture.
He's not your boy anymore.
He's no longer our boy. He's at least on. He's in the sin. He's in the sin bin for the next match. But I am so thrilled. And now it looks like Manchester United might be on for a double in game week 22. So part of the plan, I think, if you're a Bruno owner, was the get in, get out real quick sort of strategy. But he looks like a mid-term hold for the moment.
Yeah, I think you have to now. I mean, I guess you must have 3 Man United players, right?
Yeah, Shaw, Rashford, and Fernandes.
Yeah, certainly a midterm hold, and I think especially with the possibility of a double for 22, which we should know more about later. There has been some talk that people are like, oh, you should consider saving your transfers. It doesn't sound like we would have maybe more than one double in 22, and that would be Man United playing their scheduled match against Palace. So they play them twice in 2 weeks. The Michael Elise. We didn't even talk about that goal. Talk about a great goal. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
gracious.
that's one that was one where you just had to laugh and be like, everybody owns Luke Shaw.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like exactly. I felt the same way. It didn't matter to me at all. Especially
I think my rank actually went up when I own Luke Shaw, and I think my rank went up. It was kind of.
I don't think mine moved, and it was like completely flat. But so they would play Palace, and then they would play either Leeds or Brentford, and it just sort of depends on whether you'd want to double up or triple up on. With Man United, we should all, I would think, have at least 2 players from Man United, and some will have 3. So I don't, you could hold your transfer for this week for this possible double, but I don't know. Even if it, let's say it's Leeds that have the double. I'm not convinced that I would want more than like one Leeds player right now. I'm not. That seems a little overly aggressive, given what they've done so far. I mean, and Brentford, I mean, the only player I would want would be Ivan Toney. And you can make an argument, just bring him in this game week, honestly. I think that's a fair case for that.
I totally agree. I mean, Toney, Brentford are away at Leeds, and Leeds have, I think, allowed the most big chances in the league this season. Some stats that would point to Leeds has a terrible defense, and Brentford have a pretty well-oiled attack at this point of the season, and Ivan Toney is in full flow. So I think that's a good move if you're a Mitro owner, or if you're a Martial owner, I guess, especially.
It's tricky because Fulham play Spurs at home, and I mean, I'd rather be Fulham than Spurs for that match. I don't know. It's really maddening right now having Mitro. I think I have to keep him for one more week. Even though I'm making this argument for just burning a transfer if you feel like it makes sense, I think I'm probably not going to be doing that myself. The question that I have, and I guess I'm just going to jump up and move a question up right now because it's very relevant to my own team. And this is Ian Stimson asked about our Patreon supporter. Stimmy asked about João Cancelo, and he says that is it worth it a hit to get rid of Cancelo, and if so, who do we drop him for? And I think it's tricky, especially because Lewis went off injured, and it maybe opens up the door to Cancelo starting this weekend. And Man City host Wolves. If they do, I want Cancelo out. Is it worth burning a transfer to take him out? I'm not sure. I kind of look across the Premier League, like you said. There's a tricky weekend. A lot of top clubs clashing, right? So you have Liverpool host Chelsea. Don't want a defender from either of those 2 teams. If we had it, if we knew that it was confirmed that Brentford had a double, then sure, maybe I'd look at someone like Ben Mee. But we don't know that, and so I'm not going to burn a transfer on that. Arsenal host Man United. Man United are in good enough form that I don't really want to double up on Arsenal. Plus, I don't really want to be wasting my third Arsenal spot on a second defender when there's when Leandro Trossard, Brandon, is looming in the wings. Spurs, no. Leeds, no. I'm just looking across all of these teams. Where would I even buy a defender? I guess the only answer would be to buy a second Newcastle defender, and that would be Sven Botman. They're away to Palace, though. I think Palace are pretty solid at home, as we just saw in the Man United match. I don't love the idea of burning a possibly unnecessary transfer to bring in a defender on a road match. That's just not something I necessarily want to do.
Here's the deal with this defensive situation in Cancelo. You're hosting a wedding. You're getting married. You've been planning this for a long time. You're finally just like setting the guest list. You've got 2 options. You invite Sven Botman, who will be a great guest, life of the party, great dancer, good song recommendations for the DJ.
Yeah.
But Botman
sounds like me. It's like the kind of guest I am.
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
But Botman is not going to bring a gift. Not even like a $50 bill on a card or anything like that. So you're like, well, the party will be probably more fun, but what's in it for me? Cancelo, on the other hand, is going to be a drunk. Lots of people who are also invited don't get along with him very well.
Yeah.
But he is probably going to buy you first-class plane tickets for your honeymoon.
Or he won't show up at all, right?
Yeah. And you're kind of, at this point, you're crossing your fingers that you invite Cancelo and he is a no-show and you get your first wedding invitee who's sitting on the bench. So that's my advice to you.
Right now, I've got Cancelo starting, and I've got Shaw first bench. So that seems fine to me. And also the way that'll work out is that Arsenal Man United match is after that Man City match. So I don't have that awkward situation where you watch a match and you don't quite know whether you should be rooting for a clean sheet or not. Mm-hmm. I'll be able to safely know what outcome I want because that'll be the final match on Sunday. So I think that's fine. I'm leaning towards a hold right now. I have to decide on my bench, though. I think I actually am going to play Leon Bailey now. I think Bailey comes in, and then I got Andreas first bench, and then Shaw. I suppose that's how I'm gonna line these guys up. No concern about. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne. I think that's just not necessary. He looked like he needed a rest. Honestly, he hadn't been playing super well.
He missed a day of training earlier this week, and fantasy managers had their antenna up. Is there an injury? And Pep came out and said, no, he just had a personal issue.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on in KDB's life, but you can connect the dots there and say De Bruyne was not right at the World Cup, was not right coming back, probably just needed to get his head on straight. Yeah. And Pep probably told him, I don't want you here. Go figure out what's going on and come back when you're ready to play.
He made the bench.
And I'm not trying to sow seeds for the upcoming game week. I think with a player like De Bruyne, that's how justice is sort of meted out, and he'll be fine going forward. And it's almost sort of like, I don't want to say we didn't need De Bruyne this game week as much as we thought we might. It's always nice to get more points, but now he's, quote, got his rest, Josh. Yeah. It's all smooth sailing from here, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he should be. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't starting on. Yeah. But if he doesn't, then goodness gracious, I'll have Andreas on Monday, and that doesn't sound like a terrible thing either. Having him for Spurs, I would then have 3 players in that Monday match. That'd be a lot of players for a Monday afternoon. All right, well, let's move on, Brandon. I do want to talk about Game Week 21 in more detail, but just quickly, I want to read off the top 10 in the Always Cheating Super League. In 10th is, we have a 2-way tie for 10th. Tom Apidale also tied with him is Sveineg Arnesen. And then there's a series of characters. I'll just say question mark Man United Heart, Brandon, which preceded it. Then we got Rob Duncan, Michael Slagter, Graham McBlain. And 5th, we have Sarah Edge hanging out in the top 5. And 4th is Robert Nilsson. 3rd is Mark Jordan. 2nd is Mark Bleakley. We've got a couple of Marks at the top here. Brandon Marksman at the top of the Always Cheating Super League. And then in first place, we have Sikir Tay, who had a somewhat tough game week compared to some others in the top 10. But I just checked, and they're still 12th overall in the world. So not doing
incredible. I'm seeing a lot of triple captaincy chips played here in the top 10. So it's always your OR, your overall rank can kind of be, slightly, it's not really skewed. I mean, points are points, but definitely people made a little bitist of a jump with that triple captainship.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the when they do the races and the starting track is a little, not everyone starts in the same because of where they are in the it's
That's
sort
right.
of it all evens out by the end. All right. Well, let's take I also did want to quickly shout out the Patreon. It's the Discord is up and running. I think it's been going really well, really easy to use and active, and we should have moved there a long time ago. It's been great. So if you weren't sure what was in it for you to become a Patreon supporter, not only you get the bonus podcast each week. This week actually is a slightly tricky one for us, Brandon. We're going to figure out. I think the plan right now is to do a private YouTube live, either a watch party or just chat with Patreon supporters. So we're going to get that in the works. And that is something you and I have actually talked about. That's not me springing, which I often do on the podcast, is just spring an idea on you.
It's going to be fun. Yeah. Whenever we get together live, virtually with our Patreon supporters, it's always a good time.
Yeah, I agree. But the Discord's been awesome. We do a bonus podcast each week, and t-shirts and all kinds of other cool stuff and contests as well. So let's take a break, Brandon. We'll get back and we'll talk about Game Week 21.
Guys, did you hear that a Lionel Messi trading card recently sold for over $500,000 on Golden Auctions? Golden is the leading and most trusted destination for some of the most significant pieces of sports and pop culture collectibles, and better yet, it's not just for those high-ticket items. Golden's new always-on marketplace and weekly auctions start at just $5. That means collectors of all kinds can enjoy the same quality, convenience, and seamless user experience that Golden is known for. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, grade, or vault, Golden has something for everyone and is your one-stop destination for the love of collecting. Looking to buy a collectible? Good idea. While the S&P 500 fell by an average of nearly 20%, collectibles like trading cards actually increased in value. Looking to sell a collectible? Now is the time to do it. Golden is offering all sellers up to 50% off marketplace fees before February 17th. So head over to golden.co to get started. That's golden.co, GOLDIN.co.
All right, Brendan, Game Week 21 kicks off on Saturday. This is what I like to call a Game Week classic, an old school game week.
Not Game Week 2. This is Game Week Classic.
Game Week Classic. This is not one of these crazy doubles. It's not a
Crystal Game Week.
It's not a festive fixture. Yeah, it's not a Crystal Game Week. It's nice and simple.
I don't know if anybody's getting my Coke and Pepsi jokes here, but I'm amusing myself.
I got them. I think
you chose not to acknowledge them.
Well, I got them, and it took me a second, but then I was rolling with them. Once you said Crystal Game Week, I got anyway. So we have which to me basically just means that we have an early match on Saturday. We have a slate of what are here in the East Coast 10 a.m. fixtures, and then we have a Saturday afternoon match. Sunday we got 2 early matches and a banger in the late in the morning, and then we got a Monday match. Like, this is what I wish this is what the NFL does. This is why people love the NFL. It's because you do everything at the same time and the same schedule. This is so nice. I'm looking at the schedule and I'm like, oh, this is just perfect. Exactly what I want. So no chaos here. Nice and clean and simple. So Liverpool Chelsea kick things off. It's got to be, probably the first time in, I don't even know, maybe ever, that there's going to be a Liverpool Chelsea match and I won't probably have any players in that match. That is wild to me. It's kind of insane.
You know what's even more insane? Having Cucurella in your team. So,
Yeah. You still have Cucurella?
I still got Cuckoo. Right now he's on my bench on my bus team, to state the obvious. I think the question I'm asking myself is, do I just dump Cucurella this week and solve that problem? Or, as we basically covered earlier in the podcast, defensive assets, there's not a lot happening there at the moment. And you kind of wonder, like, you held on to Reece James while he was known to be out, and you just put these guys on your bench and wait for an actual strategic moment to come along.
Exactly. Yeah. Often it's not worth it. It's people. I think people just hate having injured players on their bench, and I can understand that. But often, Cucurella is not injured. He's just not being played anymore. But he also has that risk that he might come on for a 1-pointer late, which is a horrible spot.
It's ever present.
There was a question that I actually had for this week's pod, which is I think you and I are both in the Kepa and Ward club, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Even though Kepa just rewarded me with 10 points, I have Ward right now on my bus team. He's the player that I'm planning to start, and I just don't want Kepa away to Liverpool. I'm sorry, and I don't think that Leicester are suddenly good defensively, but just give me. If I don't know what to do, I'm just going to default to the home team with the better fixture. That to me seems like a really route one way to handle this.
I wouldn't mount a huge, strong argument against that, but I think I err less toward the home team and more toward the, I guess, quote unquote, better team.
Yeah.
To call Chelsea as the better team is you might be splitting hairs talking about Leicester, but Leicester's defense coming back from the World Cup has been awful. And Liverpool, for that matter, have really struggled to score goals and to get scoring opportunities. Nunez is injured. Gakpo has not really hit the ground running. What's going on with Salah? Liverpool's midfield is a chaotic mess. So that would be, as I said, it's not like a hardcore case, but that would be my case for starting Kepa.
So you're starting Kepa?
That is the plan, yes.
Okay. Well, good. Then we'll have an interesting clash there between Kepa versus Ward. I know it is funny. I was just looking back. I mean, Ward had, I think it was 5 clean sheets in 6 matches, and 6 of his last 8 going into the break. 6 clean sheets in 8. It was incredible for a $4 million keeper. And since the return, it's been 1 point, 3 points, 2 points, and 2 points. So I think you could rightly ask me what I'm doing starting Ward. But I mean, Kepa, I don't really trust him either. He's been solid in some of these home fixtures, and I don't really trust him so much away. And I don't know. I think this is one of those things you could spend an hour reading about it and trying to decide what to do, but we're probably talking about a 2-pointer and a 3-pointer.
Yeah, and exactly right, because if I had unlimited free transfers going into game week 20, Kepa would have been the last goalkeeper I would have considered. Certainly, people were taking hits to get in Ederson and look, Kepa came through with a 10-pointer. It's inexplicable to a degree, very hard to predict. So whether you decide to roll with Kepa or Ward, I think it's really a bit of a dice roll.
Yeah. That was an incredible, a low key, amazing moment was getting that 10-pointer from Kepa this game with like a heavily rotated side too. It was that Chelsea or maybe it wasn't even rotated. It was just sort of Potter looking for the right combination of players or whatever, but there was certainly it was an unusual combination. And we'll see how soon it is before their new signing actually.
Mudryk.
Yeah, is that how you say his name? Mudryk. Yeah, how soon Mudryk gets on the pitch. So let's do a quick little. Well, okay. So the Liverpool-Chelsea kicked things off, and then we have just to give you kind of a look at the weekend's matches, Brandon. Liverpool-Chelsea kicked things off, and then you have really, honestly, a 10 a.m. of rather. Yeah, let's just call them appetizers. I don't want to call them bad fixtures, Brandon, but they're not the main course for this weekend.
Sure. An amuse bouche.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess you're starting off with Liverpool-Chelsea, so that's sort of what are we calling that? It's like having
that's just before. A pre-dinner cocktail.
That's a pre-dinner cocktail. Okay, and then Palace Newcastle, which I think could be fun, just because I like watching matches at Selhurst Park, and I don't know, they play pretty well there. I mean, certainly if Newcastle were hosting Palace,
you live for those cheerleaders, don't you, Josh?
I think it's a fun place. I want to go there, Brandon. The next when you and I go back to the UK this fall, I would almost build the trip around trying to see a match at Selhurst Park because I really do want to go there. And then Sunday we have matches that I think are all pretty fun. Leeds Brentford. Man, and just every Leeds game is fun right now to watch, whether they're winning or losing. Man City Wolves, and which is fun for fantasy, and then Arsenal Man United, which is going to be really good. I really think that's going to be a fun match, and I'm excited. And then Fulham Spurs on Monday, which I think will also be really fun, just because again there's some fantasy implications. Everybody has Kane now, and I'll have Mitro and. Most likely, I almost want Silva to just come out and be like, "Oh yeah, Mitro's got his ankle can't sustain it anymore." Like, I need an excuse to drop this guy. But which brings us right to buy, sell, holds. We talked about Cancelo already, so let's move on to Mike Thunder. He says KDB, Walker, and Doherty all bench for me tonight. That's a triple whammy right there for Mr. Thunder.
It's rough.
Do I just hold and play them because there's a pretty good chance of all of them starting this weekend? Of those 3, I think all 3 would most likely start. Maybe Doherty now, just because Emerson Royal scored the goal. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a goal from Royale, that's a tough one. I could not even...
Royale with goal.
I could not even predict. You're still on shaky ground, I think, as you suggest there.
Yeah.
Walker and De Bruyne. Yeah, I think Doherty might be the biggest issue there. Yeah. Walker and KDB probably right for the start.
90%, I'd say. Yeah. I'll go with that degree of confidence. I would say I feel extremely confident both those two players will start. I don't think you'd want to start Doherty anyway. If Fulham are going to score in that match, that's a Josh Lannon lock of the week right there, Brandon.
Yeah, isn't the whole thing with Lopetegui and the new reborn Wolves is there's lots of wing play? Maybe want a guy like Kyle Walker who's got the pace to sort of track the attacks down the wing that Wolves will be unveiling. I don't know. That's like a total like shot in the dark. But
I think that the simplest explanation is that Lewis has some kind of little muscle injury now, right? So and Kyle Walker came in to replace him in the 80-something minute. So that most likely means that Walker's the natural replacement there. I mean, Cancelo, what a fall from grace. I can't quite process it still. I'm in shock. I mean, this guy was an absolute must-own player going into this season, and he and Trent are now these 7 million. There was a question from our friend Shiv about trusting premiums to trust. It turned into the defensive premiums. Are the ones who Ederson, the ultimate premium goalkeeper, has been a total bust since the restart. It's crazy.
It's true. Something's about to bust, and it turned out to be expensive fullbacks.
Yeah, man. It's just it's the narrative done shifted, and it happened so quickly, Brandon, that I don't even. What is the narrative right now? The narrative is just have Man United and Arsenal players. Guess.
Get some cheap mids and have some fun with it.
Yeah, I think exactly. Go five across the middle. Yeah. That's where we are right now. I need another wild card. I do have a wild card. Maybe I should just play it. Of course, I will not. So Stephen Curtis has a question that I think is a little trickier, which is about Miguel Almiron. He says, Almiron hold or sell? You and I don't think either of us have, strangely enough, had Almiron in our squads the entire season.
Yeah. I think you have these projects on your to-do list at work where you're just kind of like, I got to do that.
Yeah,
but they never rise as high as like 5 on the must-do list, and they just never get done. That's what Almiron has been for me this season. I've of course seen the need to have him, the want to have him.
Sure.
His numbers are down since the World Cup, but just from watching Newcastle and Almiron play, I don't see any reason to dissuade people from holding him. Newcastle are great, and I don't think the numbers are enough to put me off him.
I don't think so either. And I think that especially the Palace aren't that strong defensively, and then they play West Ham at home and Bournemouth away in the following 2 fixtures. I suppose if you had I think this becomes I think an especially good week to hold because you have this if Arsenal weren't playing Man United, I think you could make an argument for someone like Odegaard, who I don't have, and I would really like to have. I know he's
like number 2 on my to-do list. I'll tell you, that's how far.
Yeah, he's a little higher. He'd be getting close to 1 for me, I'd say. I think he's really, especially because they have this double in 23. So I think that if you were going, as Demand City, as a reminder, so if you were going to look at replace Almiron and you were just kind of done, or you were looking for a change, I would strongly consider Odegaard. Saka's up there too, of course. He's an extra 1.3 million on top, so he's not as much of a like for like comparison to Almiron. I guess in a vacuum, I would expect Saka to, not in a vacuum, I don't know, just like over the next 10 weeks, I would expect Saka to outscore Odegaard, but I don't know if it's enough to justify the extra 1.3 million.
Yes, I agree. And there's still like the goals Odegaard has been scoring have been pretty spectacular. But like his predecessor Kevin De Bruyne, there are so many routes to points with Odegaard, which you like to see. For me, as a Bruno Fernandes owner, if this double for Manchester United comes to pass in game week 22, then that is an easy switch for me. Bruno to Odegaard entering into game week 23. So that gives people who are kind of weighing that Saka versus Odegaard decision a couple of game weeks to sort of see how it starts to shake out.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do. I would wait at least one more, maybe 2 more weeks. Because I think there's for me, the Mitro to Nketiah move is a really, really easy move to make, and something that I find extremely tempting. And I, I, I don't need. I could get to Saka or Odegaard by dropping Cancelo. That'll free up like 2.5 million or so, but. I love the logical fit of just going straight from Mitro to Nketiah. So yeah, we'll see. I think that we still have a ways to go with Gabriel Jesus as well. I think that I think Nketiah has looked terrific too. I really like watching him in these matches. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, there's some talk now, some worry about Gabriel with Trossard in there, possibly a chance that it even affects Nketiah. I don't see Trossard. To me, he's more of a.
He's been brought in to play 5 minutes at the end of every match for whoever needs to rest, and that
get some Europa League starts.
Yeah, good on Trossard for getting a contract, getting paid, and maybe winning some silverware. But I just can't see him.
He's 28 years old. He's
You're too old, fat man.
He's an excellent. That's another reference, the Fight Club there, Brandon. I don't know. Everyone,
you caught it.
Actually, I think only you and I at this point, you and I are the only ones hanging on with that.
Rest in peace, Meatloaf.
Yeah, rest in peace to the loaf. Where was I?
We're talking about Trossard, and his fate.
I think he's a good depth signing. This is what a good club does.
Mm-hmm.
They have someone like him. It's he's kind of in that Oxlade-Chamberlain role. You drop him in if you have a couple injuries. I mean, they kind of need him, especially with all the injuries that have happened with Smith Rowe, who really remember that moment like last year he just scored. It was like 9 matches in a row, it felt like, where he came in the second half and scored.
It was his David Brooks moment. David Brooks at Bournemouth. Whatever happened to that poor young man. But talking about Liverpool, there's Iron Game Designer says, which Arsenal players are the best 3 to have? It looks like there are more than 3 worth having! So you and I both have 2. You've got Saliba, I've got White, and then we both have Gabriel. So what are you thinking right now for a third Arsenal player? I guess I'm leaning Odegaard. I really like the Nketiah option. And his price tag, I think, makes him an easy fit, because I think I have Lee Greenwood, I have Sam Greenwood, not the singer of "I'm Proud to Be an American." I have Sam Greenwood up front, and that's a classic. Like, don't do it, because you'll never get rid of this really cheap non-starting third forward. Where am I going with this? I don't know. It could so I kind of have some surgery to do before I can even get there. So I think Bruno to an Arsenal midfielder would then take up my third Arsenal spot. I really don't want to get rid of Saliba or fill in the blank Arsenal defender, because Arsenal's defense is incredible. So
Bruno's price makes it easy, because you could, even though he's been excellent, and you don't have to drop him for a couple of weeks, obviously, too. But it would almost be great if they had that double and just got out of the way, and then you could feel even better about doing a kind of a move that would have upside, but also would free up some cash.
I don't think we know exactly what that third striker spot looks like in a couple of weeks' time. We mentioned Ivan Toney is in great form. He would be an option. And Nketiah, yes. Strong rumors are that Danny Ings is going to West Ham, and they can finally pretend like that Scamacca signing never happened. And I mean, Danny Ings at a resurgent West Ham playing alongside Jared Bowen. I'm basically riffing off of what Chancer Dan was tweeting earlier today. I think that sounds pretty exciting. So I think there are lots of options for that third striker spot, is my point.
By the way, while you were talking we were talking about Odegaard a minute ago. I looked up his transfer market value. I was curious. And so let's play the Brandon guesses the transfer market value game. What do you think Odegaard's transfer market value is right now?
I'm going to say 88 million.
60 million.
Okay.
It was a little low. This has not been updated since November, so it could have climbed. He's an interesting case, because when he was at Real Sociedad, he had peaked at 50, then went to Real Madrid. His price dipped. Arsenal bought low. These are all.
It's like 36 or something, right?
Yeah, these prices. This is kind of like buying. It's like taking your comic books and trying to sell them for the
diamond hands with Odegaard.
The listed price or whatever. But but these are in theory what their value is. So Arsenal, bought low. It looks like I can't remember what they actually bought him for, but he's accrued 50% of value since they signed him for whatever that's worth. I just thought it was interesting. So I think I think it's a team dependent question. Ultimately, what you do with your third Arsenal player. If you have a spot like me, then I think it makes sense because I think that if I were like wild carding, I would have Odegaard and I would have. I'm not as worried about Martinelli. I can't tell what the deal is. What people are worried about Martinelli. I think there's a kind of like he's been in my squad too long, and I need to do something new. I think
sick of looking at him. Sick of his face.
I think people get bored having the same player in their team for 20 weeks, and so I think that actually is genuinely a factor that happens sometimes. And I don't really see any particular reason to drop him. I don't know. Like he's. How many? I guess he has two blanks, but he scored 2 goals in the matches before that. So what? How many goals do you need for a player that most of us bought at $6 million? It's 2 out of the last 4 seems like a perfectly acceptable return to me.
I agree. Yeah, and so long as Arsenal are playing as well as they are, the points will be shared. Sure. If what we said about Trossard is wrong and Trossard gets a start, then I will be hitting the eject button on Martinelli so fast.
Yeah, of course.
But as we said, I just don't see that happening, and I think Martinelli is going to continue to come good for the rest of the season.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to get Phil Foden'd. That's Phil Foden. Phil Foden's like a bench player now.
Phil Foden didn't think he was going to get Phil Foden. He doesn't know what's going on. This is just madness.
Now I've got to do the transfer market game for Phil Foden. What do you think Phil Foden's current transfer market?
Oh bloody hell! Is he going to be more than Odegaard?
Definitely going to be more.
Okay, so I'll say 74.
110.
What the? This is.
It's only up and up. It's gone up since from July to November. He's gone from 90 to 110. I'm not sure you could get that price on the market right now. He's so young though. He's great. I mean, he'll eventually find a coach who will play him in matches, right? So, I don't know. It's a weird situation with him. I don't know if he's like I feel like he's trying to teach him a lesson or something. Because Pep loves him. Pep is like, you remember he used to be like, oh, even though I'm not playing him, he's the, he's better than Messi or whatever. And now I don't know what's going on. So
cool.
Maybe he's trying to find a spark. All right, so 2 more questions here, Brandon. Alahara says, are we just going to pretend that Toney doesn't exist? One of the top scoring forwards and in cracking form. I keep getting worried about this gambling thing. Like, is it eventually going to be a factor?
This is like some white collar crime stuff happening here, Josh, where this is going to be swept under the carpet and under a carpet, under that carpet, and so on until the end of the season, I would assume.
Weird.
I think
weird.
Ivan Toney's going to be, trying to prolong the end of the season. He's hoping for another COVID outbreak so they can halt the season and restart it later. This could be his last. I don't know. Or he just gets some sort of huge, huge fine. But it would seem that, Toney is not going anywhere in the short term, and I think we've kind of said our piece about how his form is pretty undeniable.
Yep.
Did not miss yet another pen. He's like the Mario Balotelli 2.0 is from the pen spot.
Yep. Yeah, he's so solid. Yeah. Holland is up there too. Every time I watch these matches, I don't like not. I mean, I even capped him this week, but it felt like I didn't, right? Because everyone he was so triple captain. Every time he's in the box, I'm just convinced they're going to call a pen for something. And it's just,
he's a big man. Yeah. Draws a lot of contact.
Yeah. I think that if Brentford get a double in 22, I'll certainly have Toney. And so let's see where we are there. I think he probably hasn't got enough credit, and I think it's just the. Also, he had a reputation for being a bit of an FPL troll last season. I think I'm still kind of shaking that off a little bit. I know that those reputations are rarely earned. It's just that they It's usually he didn't do something in the 3-week window that I had him, but I personally had a couple weeks where I had him too, and or especially early on in that season, and maybe I'm just it's been hard to blank slate him and start fresh. All right, final question from Nick E. He says, outside of Haaland, are Man City effectively an FPL no-go zone?
In Haaland and who?
Outside of Haaland.
Just Haaland.
Just Haaland, yeah.
I suppose it would seem that way.
Yeah.
They just haven't been performing. I'll go back to what I was saying about Kane for the last couple of weeks and how just these, as you would call them, Josh, blue chip assets. Yep. And I would just say like City is kind of like a blue chip team. When they're down, they do not stay down for long. Kane seemed like he wasn't quite possible of a 2-goal return, and against Palace, just like bang, there you go. That's why you hang on to them. So while City just feel like their form has vanished, despite what we saw in the second half against Spurs, I think it's lurking. So one thing I feel strongly about is their defense, and my heart goes out to everyone who got. I was looking at mini league competitors, and every team seemed to have a different City defender, whether it was Ake, Akanji, Ederson, Walker, Stones, Cancelo.
Didn't work for any of them. Yeah, I had Cancelo. That didn't work.
Even at their best this season in the Premier League, City have contrived to have a goal or two scored on them. So I'm just kind of out fully on the defense. So to the question, I guess, is just kind of like, do you have the stomach for a midfielder? And, I don't know.
I'm still out on Mahrez. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't be, but I am. I mean, it was kind of interesting that they I didn't think we'd see Alvarez and Mahrez play together. And I need to take a closer look at the formation, how they play.
Yeah, so Mahrez was obviously out wide right, and Grealish was out wide left. Alvarez was kind of just tucked in right behind Haaland. He was playing a little bit of a 10 role. Very, very kind of tricky sort of formation.
I know, it's interesting. Then you have Gundo. It's like I don't know. Basically, clearly it worked in the second half. It felt like every minute of that second half, you had 5 Man City players in the box with balls, pinging around. So I don't really trust Mahrez. I mean, this is like, I feel like I can't even have the Mahrez conversation because we're like a decade into it now. Ever since he moved to Man City, it's, do you trust him during the window when Pep decides to play him? And then you get him and he doesn't play or doesn't start or comes on for 1 minute late and everyone gets mad. And that's not a game I'm willing to sacrifice points to not have Mahrez. I don't like the stress of having him in my squad, and I'm just not going to deal with it. Also, my priorities right now are focused on Arsenal and Man United, and that's where I want my money to go. I mean, Wout Weghorst may have to actually be an option. I mean, if I don't really know. I mean, especially with Martial, I know he didn't look that great in that match. I actually think I probably would pick up a second Man United defender if I was if they end up having to double because of the if it's like Palace and Leeds, that's a pretty strong double for Man United defender.
Yeah, and De Gea's in really good form. Not that you have to get De Gea, but when he's doing his De Gea things, that always increases the likelihood of a clean sheet. Yeah.
The Rashford triple captain possibility for 22 is something we're going to have to talk about next week, because if it came to pass that they have Palace and Leeds at home for the double, what's his floor for those 2 matches? I mean, it's got to be like 10 points, right?
Yeah. And I think against Palace, he was trying to vibe. Was trying to do lots of tricky flicks and dribbles and all that stuff, and he just wasn't finding himself in the right space. So he's point being, he's really feeling it.
Yeah.
What I was just going to say about Mahrez was, it does feel like if you have him, it's to take the points and run because of, as you said, the Arsenal midfielders. There are many other options that are just like full on lock guaranteed minutes. Yep. And I think this double game week was the optimal time. Clearly it was, to bring in Mahrez. And now it is time to kill your darlings, so they say.
Yeah, I think it's. It worked out great for Mahrez owners. It was a bold move if you brought him in, and it panned out. I mean, sort of like Mahrez and Bruno. Those in most game weeks, there's one player who, if you have him, it kind of doesn't matter what else went wrong. And that was actually me last game week with Harry Kane. Had an okay game week, but I had Harry Kane, and I got 16 points, and that gave me a green arrow. And I think that was the case with Mahrez and Bruno this week. So
it should be said that City do have a confirmed double for, I can't believe 23. We're still talking about doubles, but for 23.
Yeah. Talking about vibe. This is not our vibe is not talking about doubles. I'm sorry. No. Our vibe is playing FPL and having fun, and there's too much information we have to impart when there's doubles. It's like a public, you have to do it, but it's like when you're watching a football game and they air the commercial for the college or something, Brandon. It's like you have to air it. You're required to. Each college gets one commercial per game. So all right, on that unusual note, I am going to bring the pod to a conclusion, Brandon. So thanks everyone for listening. Good luck, and I hope you get a chance to listen to this podcast before the deadline. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Yeah, big thanks to the top tier, our producer patrons, Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson. Great to see you, Nola, buddy. Our buddy Chris Howell, Big Gafford, Babas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wagner Lodahl, Winky Emoji, Nick Wright, Lazaros Janos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Rich Evans, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Mikey Uwang, Shipmore Joria, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, or Jeff, as you like, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Lee Hickman, Volker Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, James Conroy, Charlin F. Gadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Paul Hertzing, Heath Cram, Roberto Morals, Thomas Tislov, and Noah and Louise. Rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on the social networks, and go to our website, alwayscheating.com, for all this. And heck, why not just get yourself an Always Cheating t-shirt for the fun of it?
That's right. Or you just support the podcast on Patreon at the
Sure, we'll take it all.
Volkswagen tier, Brandon.
Pick and choose. Free t-shirt. Your method of support is always appreciated.
That's true. Any levels appreciated. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.